Hey, what's going on, guys? So, today, we are going to be covering the strongest melee damage dealers in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. This is going to be probably controversial, but who knows. Well, first things first. Don't make a character because they do a lot of damage. I know some people enjoy doing that, and I know myself personally, I am a power gamer. I am ashamed to admit it, but it's the truth. And it's fun to do a lot of damage, and it's fun to kill all of your Dungeon Master's encounters. But hear me out. Make your characters interesting, and don't make them just because they can do a lot of damage. But regardless, if you are looking to do a lot of damage, just make sure that it's for the greater good and to protect the other players in the party that did not build a min-max character and that actually have a chance of dying. So just make your character in order to protect their weak characters that cannot fight for themselves. So, you can min-max as long as it's for the greater good. Otherwise, do not do this. Okay, so I'm going to be judging it off 3 categories. So there's burst damage, which basically is how much damage you can do in a single round of combat. So, basically Nova damage. So some classes are really, really good at spiking their damage super high, but only for like a round or 2. So that's the first category. Then there's sustained damage, which is how much damage you can do over the whole combat encounter, or just for the longest amount of time. Usually combat doesn't last that long, but this is for like those grind out fights where you're fighting a legendary creature or something like that. And then there's utility outside of combat, because combat isn't everything, but I mean it kind of is though. But you know, some people do this thing called role playing, and some people like to explore, which I mean, yeah, I don't know who those are, but. I picked out a few classes, and I left out a few. This is purely melee, but the only class I left out was Monk out of the melee, because I'm going to make a whole separate video on monks. Monks have their own little niche. They can do a lot of damage consistently, but they just have so many abilities, I just had to take them out. And most of the time, nobody ever plays Monk. So I felt like I didn't want to make this too complicated and leave them in. But yeah, they have so much things. It makes me rage every single time. Therefore, I'm leaving them out for now. So we got the Paladin, which is really cool, and I like Paladins. Barbarian. Well, look at the channel name. I mean, come on. Rogues, also very cool. And who am I forget? Oh, Fighter, the actual class that is supposed to be fighting a lot. So, in terms of just flat out burst damage, just using every single resource that you have in one round, the Paladin is in first place. They, using their smites, can do insane amounts of damage. I'm talking... okay, so, for the ranking, just to crunch the numbers, I only did 5th level characters, because I feel like that's when most campaigns are, like, at their peak, as in terms of, like, combat. That's, like, the sweet spot for D&D. Like, 5 to 10. So, I did it based on 5th level characters, and I gave them their own kind of feat tree. Just if I was playing that class, I would take these feats if I wanted to do the most damage. So, I gave the Paladin, the Fighter, and the Barbarian Polearm Master, obviously, and Great Weapon Master, obviously. And then I crunched numbers from there. The only one that was different was the Rogue, and they took Magic, Initiate, and Elven Accuracy, which is useful. It gives them advantage a lot because they took the Find Familiar spell, and they get the Owl Familiar, and they use the help action on all their attacks. They get advantage that way. The little cheat you can do there. But so subclasses. So Oath of Vengeance Paladin, obviously, advantage on all your attacks against one creature. Zealot Barbarian for that Divine Rage, which gives you a lot of extra damage. Swashbuckler Rogue, surprisingly, instead of Assassin Rogue, because Assassin, you have to surprise the... you basically have to stay stealth to get your abilities, and it's kind of hard to do if you're in a party of 3 other people that are just... Some don't want to do stealth. Whatever the scenario is, it's a very niche ability. So I chose Swashbuckler, because they get Rakish Audacity, I believe that's the one. They get some kind of ability where you basically have to 1v1, and then they get the sneak attack damage that way. So it's very consistent. And then for the Fighter, I chose Brute Fighter, which flat out just increases your damage. So, I forgot to mention those, but I don't know why. So, burst damage, the Paladin takes the cake. Using all of the smites, which at 5th level they get 2nd level smites, I believe. Let me check my little sheet here. Yeah, okay. So they get 2nd level smites. They get, and this is assuming both the attacks hit. Paladin, they burn through all their smites in one attack, but it does the most damage. 2nd place is the Fighter. In terms of burst damage, Action Surge just basically doubles their attacks. So, in one round, they could do an insane amount of damage. Not as much as the Paladin, but pretty close. Then, 3rd place, burst damage, you have the Rogue. The Rogue does, with the Elven Accuracy and the Find Familiar, you get advantage all the time, and you're more likely to crit. Therefore, critting with that sneak attack damage is insane. And the Barbarian comes in last in terms of burst damage out of the gate. They don't have a lot of abilities that they could stack on to their attacks already, so they can't do a lot of damage out of the gate. Therefore, they're in last. But that brings us to our next category, actually. The sustained damage. Barbarians can do a lot of damage consistently throughout your whole entire combat encounter. They are in 1st place for sustained damage. Actually, in 2nd place, this was kind of surprising to me. The Rogue, the Swashbuckler Rogue in specific, really good at doing damage sustained. It's crazy. I don't know. I never played a Rogue, so I did some research. It's that sneak attack damage, and the Swashbuckler can apply it basically all the time. There's some scenarios where they can't apply it, and that's when they fall off. But when they hit that with that sneak attack, who knows? It does a lot of damage. 3rd place is the Fighter. The Fighter is good at fighting, Action Surge, but after their Action Surge, they only get 2 attacks, and they don't have Rage, they don't have a lot of abilities to just flat out increase the damage of their attacks. There's certain ways you could do that, but the Brute Fighter just gets basically extra damage anyway, but it's not as much as some of the other class features, so therefore they're in 3rd. The Paladin once they run out of gas, is in last place for sustained damage. They have a lot of other abilities that they can use, but like the auras and all that kind of thing, but they don't quite get that at 5th level. So, once they run out of those smites, it's not looking good for them. But they have a lot of use outside of combat, which brings us to the utility section. So, the rogue is actually the most useful outside of combat. They're really good at sneaking, and they're really good at picking locks. And you can honestly flavor your rogue however you would like. They get expertise and a few abilities, which means they're really good at whatever you pick. So, outside of combat, the rogue is still very useful, and I might have to play rogue, honestly, looking at all these categories. But anyway, in second place would be the paladin. They have spells, and depending on what you pick, they could be useful, they could be not. But just the option to have spells is useful in itself, because they could take Find Steed and have a horse and use that, or they could do a number of things outside combat. Surprisingly, outside of combat, there's a tie for the fighter and the barbarian. Not very useful, and both of them don't really have much use outside of combat. That doesn't mean they're useless outside of combat, it just means there's not a lot they can do ability-wise. But once again, just having fun with the game is what's the most important. If you have fun min-maxing and building strong characters, which I do, then yeah, go do that. But if you just want to do this to destroy your dungeon master's encounters, it's not a good look for you. If you want to do it to kind of be useful to the group, but not like hog the spotlight and, oh, look how strong my character is, they could easily kill your character and shit like that, yeah, not cool at all. Yeah, that's like my number one pet peeve. But if you're min-maxing for the greater good, good on you. That's respectable, and you are a good individual. If you're min-maxing to do devious things, then you know who you are, and go seek help immediately. But other than that, just listen to your dungeon master. They have the last say on all this stuff, and they can, if they want to, they could try to be like, yo, listen, dude, your character is way too strong, and they're just taking the spotlight on every single encounter and making all the other characters look useless. Therefore, we gotta find a solution to this. Myself, personally, I am a dungeon master, and I increase the difficulty of the encounters to try to match the skill level of the players, which that's like Dungeon Master 101, right? Like, you just balance the encounters. Sometimes it's a little difficult because of the power imbalance, and the whole entire challenge rating system, absolutely, it does not work when you're dealing with min-maxers. They can count that one min-maxer can be not even 4 parties, they could be the whole party by themselves. But so, oh my god, I just went on a whole entire tangent. Anyway, if we're looking at who does the most burst damage, it's the paladin. Sustained damage, barbarian, and then utility outside of combat, rogue. So every class has their own kind of niche, and just because your class didn't make it to the top does not mean you should not play that class. Damage is not everything. If you like the class's features, go with that class. If you like the flavor of the class, go with that class. But if you're looking to build a really strong character, just pick one of the categories and work on it. But yeah, that's the video. If you've stayed this long, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Yeah.